Are you new to investing? Wondering whether or not you can self-manage your properties? Let us tell you about our partner, RentRedi. RentRedi is an awesome property management software that can help you grow and handle every aspect of your real estate investing business. Rent collection, tenant screening, maintenance, lease signing, listing. Honestly, RentRedi has everything.
One of the best features is their new tenant software, Latchel, where you're able to remove yourself as the landlord from being the middleman between tenants and maintenance calls. And it's also essentially a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for property management.
Let me also mention that RentRedi is unlimited. All their plans are flat price. This means you can keep adding properties to your portfolio without having to pay more. You can close on all the properties you want, and RentRedi's price stays the same. Best part about it is for you guys is they've given us an amazing deal to pass on to all Weekly Juice listeners. You can get 50% off any RentRedi plan at rentredi.com when you use our code JuicePod. That's rentredi.com, RentrediI.com with code JuicePod, JUICEPOD, and you'll get 50% off any plan. If this is your first time here, welcome. During our shows, we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors to spread knowledge, advice, and actionable tactics to help others in the pursuit of financial freedom. We discuss successes, failures, systems, motivations, experiences, and key lessons learned along the way in the hopes that these stories help you along your journey. Tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice. If you've been here before and like what you've been hearing, please subscribe, share with friends, rate and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That goes an extremely long way for us. It's simple. Just click on your podcast app, type in our podcast name, The Weekly Juice, click on the reviews, and let us know what you think. The more ratings we get, the more eyes we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you all with high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod for daily content and personal finance tips to assist in your journey towards financial freedom. Welcome back to the Weekly Juice, where we talk real estate, financial independence, and entrepreneurship. As always, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we had on special guest, Jon Schoeller. He's a real estate investor, house flipper, financial coach, and private money lender. He's known as the Frugal Investor on Instagram, and he helps people on their quest to financial freedom. He has reached financial freedom, has flipped over 100 properties, and is, I would say, just when I say overall entrepreneur, he's flipped motorcycles, mattresses. He had a moving company. He's done a lot of different things. He's only 34, and he and his wife are just, I would say, great people, but also like very savvy investors that have their hands in a lot of different things.
Yeah, and we get a lot into the actual function of how a private money lending deals work in this episode, which is really cool because we haven't dove a lot into that in previous episodes. But not only that, he's super transparent. And he's just like very real about his life, some of the things he's accomplished and his struggles. And I think that's really cool to talk about with people that are willing to just share some of the things they've gone through in their life. And he's a multimillionaire now, and he's done every different type of deal that you could imagine. So there is somewhere in this episode that will be some sort of advice for you. So
we were just talking about it. It was one of our favorite episodes to date. In all honesty, it just flowed very well. He had a great conversation, and I think a lot of people are gonna take to this. There were so many nuggets throughout. I'd grab pen and paper or have your notes app up, even if you're on the phone, and get ready to take some notes because he provides some actual information that you're going to use in your life. So, without further ado, let's bring in Jon. Well, Jon, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice. We are very excited to have you. We've been following your journey for quite some time now, and what you're doing online is inspiring, right? You are a real estate investor, house flipper, financial coach, private money lender. You're basically doing it all and giving back to people out there. So we appreciate it, and we're honored to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, it's funny because I almost teach or I coach. Be careful how many irons you have in the fire, but I'm a better teacher than I am a listener, I guess.
That's cool. That's why we have you on then. Hopefully you'll drop some knowledge on our listeners today and, provide them as much insight as you have us from following your page. So can you give a little bit of a background on yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then how you transitioned into entrepreneurship and the real estate investment world?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, my name is Jon Schoeller. I am now I'm an investor. I run a company with my two partners where we flip houses. We are now reached over 170 houses flipped in the last 5.5, 6 years. I'm a father, soon to be a adopted father. We're fostering a little girl that we're going to adopt with my wife. And we currently live in Charleston, West Virginia, but we are originally from Charlottesville, Virginia. And we kind of moved all over for a little bit while my wife traveled nurse. I had sold a previous company that I owned. It was a moving company. And we did that for a little while. And then my wife went back to school to get her doctorates in nurse anesthesia. That's where she got into Marshall University. And that's how we winded up in Charleston, West Virginia. And things just kind of took off from there. A lot of opportunities came to us. We were looking for them. We had been preparing for them a long time. And when the door opened, we took advantage of them. And so the intention was to leave here after she graduated school. We never imagined ourselves staying in Charleston, West Virginia, but we have so many things going on now and so many things we've built and companies we've built. It's really hard to just pick up and leave. So that's kind of what we're doing now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I think one of the first things we want to touch on is like what you just mentioned, which we didn't even know about you, is that you sold a moving company. So you were an entrepreneur like already, right? You had this entrepreneurial spirit, but like there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and like getting into the investing world and real estate investing, right? So was there some sort of light bulb that went off for you that you were like, why did you make that pivot? And what was it about that moment in your life that changed you to become a real estate investor?
Oh man, when you discover that your money can work for you, that's kind of what does it there. It took me a long time to realize that. In fact, entrepreneur really is just a fancy word for you're an employee for yourself. I mean, it's people act like as soon as you're an entrepreneur, like you're free and, you make millions of dollars. It's not the case. Oftentimes it's a worse struggle than if you work for somebody else. People just try to make it glorified. And I get it. It is nice. I couldn't imagine working for anybody else now, but it's not for everybody. But I did that for the longest time. Like I said, I ran a moving company for about 9 years. I started it when just right after I turned 21 and sold it around 28, 29 when we started travel nursing with my wife. And I didn't understand investing a lot. I started learning more about it when I was 27, 28. I was a really good saver. Now I could save $1. I probably was cheap and I'm now frugal. So that hence the name on Instagram, the frugal investor, but I won't deny that I used to be cheap. I used to unplug light bulbs. I would unplug the toaster when I left the house. I could make 15 grand in a week. It didn't matter. I was still going to do that. And I did that for the longest time. And so it allowed me to save. I don't regret doing that or living that way or having that mindset because it allowed me to save up the money, what I would call seed money, to start investing and do what I do now. And it also gave me a comfort or a sense of comfort to, learn in my free time or take time off when I needed to because I had such a big emergency fund and allow my wife to go back to school debt free and all that stuff. So I don't regret it. But when I started learning to invest or actually deploying my money to invest it and seeing that compounding interest take effect, I was like, I need to do more of this. This is way easier. And what really set the light bulb off for me probably is when I joined up with my partners. I brought something they needed and they had something I needed. I didn't have any real estate experience or background, but I was really good at finances and money and management and, CEO type roles. I was good at that stuff because I had ran a business for 9 years and I had employees and all that. And these guys were kind of fresher at that, especially Andrew, one of my partners. But the money thing, it's not they're not bad at it. It's just not their forte. So that's kind of how we joined up. But anyway, I was watching these investors put the money in the company and get a paycheck, and they never even saw the property. They never saw, not a paycheck, an investment return, but they never saw the property. They didn't do a lick of work other than wire the money. And I was like, I need to try that. All right, so fine. I'm going to tell these guys I have some money and I'm going to do my first investment. And that's when it took off, man. The first one was so nerve wracking. I tell the story all the time. I was so nervous. I was sick. It fell out of contract the first time. I thought I was never going to get my money back. But after that one, I've probably invested. My wife and I have now invested on over 30 homes through the country. I mean, through the company, and probably going on at least 20 or so private deals now.
That's awesome. So you mentioned private deals and I want to get into this because we haven't had a specific, like an actual private money lender on the show before. So I think it's great. And Corey and I, just to give a little context, we're currently working on a deal on a rehab, and we had to, fund about $60,000 worth into it. And we bought it for about 130, give or take. So we're all in for about 190. And, it costs about, give or take, around 20 to 30 grand each, right? For deals like this. And like each time we keep getting into the cycle of like, you save up this money, then you got to deploy it into an investment. Then you're back at really low. Then you save it back up, you put it back in. So we're like, dude, how can we get out of this cycle? And is it even possible? And so hopefully you can give a little expertise here. It's like maybe starting out just at the very elementary level, like explaining what a private money lender is, and then how someone like Corey and I can partner with someone like you down the line and deploy maybe a little bit less cash up front and maybe provide equity or something like that in the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So private money lender is not to be confused with hard money or bank money. And these hard money is where it mostly gets confused, because hard money likes to disguise themselves as private money when they're not. So private money lender is literally getting money out of the pocket out of somebody you usually know, a single individual, not an institution, not a bank, not a group of investors. It can be. You can get private money. We have a private money lender inside of our company that's like 5 or 6 friends, but they're not an institution. They're not a big company. It's just 6 guys that threw their money together and they lend on deals. But typically what you're going to find, it's going to just be some people that have some money laying around, some wealthier individuals that have money to deploy and they don't have time. So with the solution, remember, you're bringing them a solution. The important thing here is when you're looking for private money, you don't beg for it. If you're begging for it or look desperate, it's going to be hard for you to find private money. You're bringing them a solution and you're bringing it with confidence. You're saying, hey, we know how to flip houses. We have a track record. Or, hey, we've always paid our investors back. We will never fail you. We always get the money back. You can't guarantee, it's illegal, but your track record can kind of speak for itself, right? So you can the best thing to show sometimes is a deal you lost on, but still made your investor whole. All right. You still got them the money back. That's going to make me feel 10 times more comfortable. So that's what a private money lender is. There's somebody has some money laying around. And let's say you guys need a deal funded. And you said, well, how do I do this without keep putting our own money in, tying our own money up and getting it back out and kind of cycling this instead of just growing our money while using other people's money? And this is how you want to do it. OPM, other people's money. You're going to use private money, people like myself, and you're going to give us some equity share, or you're going to pay us interest. So there's a couple of ways to do it. We used to pay all of our investors 1/3 of the profit. Okay. And so that was my wife and I too. So if my wife and I invested on a house, we still get that deal because I'm an owner of the company. But now we can get cheaper money because we have better track records, but 1/3 of the profit. So if you made $60,000 on the deal, the investor would get $20,000 of that and the company would get 40, which is great for the investor, right? I mean, 1/3 of the deal when it's a big win. But what was not so great for the investor is if if a deal went sideways on us and took us 8 months and we only made $5,000 on the deal. Now the investor only makes like $1,500, give or take, and their money was out for 8. We didn't like playing that game. Okay. So my wife and I will still take that gamble because we understand the consequences and it's easier to explain to myself. Right. But most of the time, what we do now is we pay our investors 10% interest. So from the time the money hits our account, we pay 10% annualized every single month. Another thing we do is we allow them to invest with us through their retirements, their IRAs. There is billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars sitting in IRAs, oftentimes not even deployed because people are scared of the market. They just knew to put their money away. So you allow them to self-direct their retirement funds into your company and you pay them 10% interest. But the only problem is you can't pay them directly. You have to pay their IRA. So we let it accrue. The 10% accrues over however long we have the money. And when the deal closes, we wire back the principal and then one other check to their custodian or whoever's holds their money, the interest amount accrued over however long we had the money at 10%. So sorry, I get long-winded sometimes, but that's kind of how it works privately.
No, that's great. Corey, you probably have a couple here too, but specifically, does this work only for flips, or can this be used, this tactic, for buy and holds as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the burst strategy. So you got to have an out for them, right? Not everybody. You will find some wealthier investors, and this is hard for me even to find. And I've raised over $3 million myself outside of my wife and I's money. So I would say that I'm getting pretty good at raising private capital, but where I'm finding a struggle for myself is finding long-term capital. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 years. I can find that. I'm talking 5, 10, 15, 20 years in place or in lieu of a bank. That's just tough because, for many reasons, right? You got to get someone to trust you to hold their money that long. Anything can happen in that amount of time. And usually it's going to be more expensive. I'm not saying that there's not private money out there you can't get it for or 5%, but usually what you want to do is you get the private money at 8 to 12%. Typically, that's a typical return to a private money investor. And then you want to hold that for no longer than a year or two max and refinance them out with a bank and then get that 4 or 5% money. And so you can find that. But finding long-term private money has been a struggle for even myself.
I think it would be important to kind of frame this in using numbers, right? I think that's how people think. I know that's how Ryan and I think. Maybe you could give us an example of a private money deal that either you've done on either side of it, whether maybe you're the investor, maybe you're the private money lender. I think using the BRRRR strategy is probably like the most, at least it resonates with Ryan and I, because we're long-term buy and hold investors. We haven't really done any flips. And I think a lot of people in the financial independence community probably gear themselves more towards long-term investment. So do you have an idea of maybe specific numbers on a BRRRR deal and how much the private money lender put in and just kind of how those numbers worked out?
Yeah. So I have privately financed a BRRRR deal before. I don't remember the specifics of that deal, but I can give you a rough example of how it would work with just general numbers here. So let's say you guys find a deal and you buy it for $80,000 and it needs $20,000 in repair, right? So all in, you're going to need $100,000, but you don't want to use your own money. So you're going to use mine. So how you're going to pitch me the deal is you have to make me feel comfortable that there's at least that 20 to 30% equity in the deal, that when you go to the bank, you can get me my money out plus my interest, right? So don't forget about that. Now, here's a smart tip. Borrow, as long as you don't go over about that 70% rule, go ahead and borrow my payments from me too, because you're going to pay interest on that as well. And what that means is if my payments were going to cost you about $6,000 over the 6 months, it's going to be called $1,000 a month to me, give or take, to borrow my money, go ahead and borrow 106 from me. I don't personally care. A lot of investors are a little bit iffy about that, but look, as long as there's equity still in the deal, I don't care, because you're going to pay me 10% on that $6,000 too that you borrowed from me. So it's just more of my money getting put to work. So I'm fine with it. So as long as you have that equity there, it made me feel safe. And then of course you're gonna have to probably season it with a renter, right? This is the BRRRR strategy. So you're probably going to need my money for 3 to 6 months to flip it. And then you're going to need it another 6 months to season it. And season it is just getting that renter in there so you can show the bank the rental income. So you're going to hold my money for 1 year. You're going to hold 106,000. You're going to pay me my interest every single month using some of that 106, which is fine. And then after 1 year, the bank steps in. They will cash out refi. You're 106. That comes back to me. And then you guys may or may not, depending on how tight the deal was, and this is fine, have to throw some money in the deal to make me whole. Sometimes you won't. And then sometimes you'll pay me off at 106 and you'll get cash on top. So you might walk away with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in the deal. And that's, a lot of people don't understand the power of this. That's not taxable income. That's not even income. It's just a loan to you. Yeah. Then your tenants pay it back. So that's kind of how the deal would go. You borrow 100, maybe plus the payments from me, as long as you think it'll be worth, call it 130 when you're done. Let it sit for the 6 months or however long your bank needs. Go to the bank, get your loan. When they give you the loan, you give me my check, because I'm the mortgage holder at that point. They pay me off, you pay me off, and then it's y'all's property. And literally, if you did it right, you put zero money in the deal.
And that makes perfect sense, John. I think that the tricky part is that knowing what the ARV is going to be of these properties, right? I mean, so Ryan and I have a deal right now. We've given some numbers before, but essentially Ryan mentioned it briefly, but we purchased a property for $135,000. It's a $60,000 rehab. So we're all in for $195,000. And we got like a rough appraisal. It's probably going to appraise for $226,000. But when you look, $225,000, $226,000, that's what they told us. So we think it could probably be more once the rehab's done, depending upon what side of the bed the appraisal wakes up on that day. You never really know. But the point is that that's not a type of deal where we feel like, oh, we're going to be able to get private money, because we're close to that 70, but like if it appraises for 215, great for us. Fine. We still have money. We still have equity in the property, and we didn't have to put that much into it. It's a long-term play, but it's not like the thing appraised for 275 and we're going to have this be able to use a whole private money scenario. So long-winded there, but I guess the point is that as long as you know your ARVs, this can be majorly lucrative, and you just have to kind of factor that 70% in. So very, very cool.
Yeah, just be conservative with every number. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But always be conservative.
So let's go to that and talk about ARV. Like, how do you, when you're going through your deal analyzation process and finding deals, like how would you go about saying, okay, like I know, or I can, I guess, guesstimate that this is going to be at least 70% ARV, or I'm going to make my money on top of it?
Yeah. So, I mean, comps are going to be your buddy, right? That's it. And they got to be recent comps. And if you don't know what comp is, it's literally short for comparable sales or comparable sales in your market. So the newer, the better. And these are houses that need to match square feet. They need to match bedrooms and baths. They need to match your yard size. They need to match how great or poor the neighbors are, how close the interstate is to. Remember, a comp can't just be square foot or bedrooms, baths. That's great, but you got to put your eyes on these properties because sometimes that house sits, in a beautiful neighborhood, and the other house is right backed up next to an interstate. So you got to really fill out what your comps are there and put eyes on them. Now, if you get enough comps, you could probably go off that. If you're in a big city or in a big area where you got 20 comps within 3 blocks of your place, you can probably get more comfortable without driving around. But if you're going off 2 or 3 comps, you really need to go put eyes on these things. Now, I have a partner, Andrew, who that's his role in our company. His thing is acquisition. So he's gotten really good at this, and his wife's a realtor. So of course we leverage that too. Yep. We may or may not be able to see the MLS. So that helps, right? So, but using comps is going to be your best. Now, a software that I use, and I'll pitch it real quick. I am an affiliate, but I'm no ownership of the company, but Rehab Valuator. I promise you guys, I don't just pitch it just for fun. We've used a lot of softwares. We pay a lot of money for softwares over the last 3 years. We've used Daniel Clayman's software, Rehab Valuator, and it is outstanding. And he's updating it all the time. So it pulls live comps, it pulls public records. It does all of that for you in the software, and it's relatively cheap for what it does. So I highly recommend checking that out if you don't have access to the MLS. But that's my next step is become really good friends with a realtor. Become really good friends with a realtor who will either give you access or does not mind looking it up for you on the regular.
It's very cool. I think it's very important to mention that. And I think that a lot of young investors get in the game and they kind of assume numbers and then it doesn't come out the way they thought and it puts a sour taste in their mouth and they're like, I hate investing. It doesn't work. It's like, well, there's a lot that goes into it. And our property, it was a very unique property. There was like 2 comps because there was about 1,900 square feet, but it was detached to another property and it had all the intangibles, everything else that made it a standalone property. But because it was detached, we got a little bit less than we thought. So good thing is we were conservative with the numbers at the beginning and we knew that going in that we couldn't just assume that this was going to appraise for 260. So I really like that. Right. Did you have something else on private money?
Yep. I have a couple more. So really quick, cause I know you just mentioned the software. Does that software include, finding out what a property would rent for? We use Rentometer and we haven't found anything else really that like when you're going in and investing, it's like, okay, or doing your research, like how can I find out how much XYZ property will rent per month based on whatever I do to it?
No, I haven't tried that, but the reevaluator allows you to pick whether you're going to flip it or hold it, or if it's commercial, if it's a new build. But I haven't tried. I don't want to speak for or like shy anybody away from trying, but I don't think that it tells you estimated rents. I think it's just comps, comparable sales, and then public records on like what it sold for and things like that, how to contact the owners and stuff like that. So it's more of like it's what we use it for mainly is a budget tracker. That's what we mainly use it for.
For like your specific, what type of rehab that you're doing essentially, right?
Yep. Every house, has its own sheet and we go through that thing and then it brings up the rehab budget and it makes sure you don't forget everything. Now we've customized our sheet, but they have templates on there. And it was so important because when you're a new flipper, it's so easy to forget about something. So if you go line item by line item, you literally can't mess this thing up and miss something. And I highly recommend that for anybody just getting started. And then like you guys, and we've already all agreed, be conservative with your numbers. I like to say, and it could be extreme, but you need to make money in your worst case scenario. And that's hard. Sometimes that prevents you from buying a house, but it will keep you safe in the long run. And I think your first couple of deals are super important because those give you the momentum to keep moving forward.
Couldn't agree more. And the point on that is that if you buy it day one and it cash flows, I'm not really too concerned about what the market does. And the reason is because I'm sure you've done this type of research. We have not been investors that long, 3 or 4 years. So we didn't go through 2008. But I was doing some research on 2008 and the rents didn't really drop that much. In fact, a lot of people who lost their homes went to be renters. So the rental market actually kind of went up a little bit. Now, some rental markets went down, but we're talking marginally. So I think it's very important if it works day one and you're willing to hold it through some ups and downs, you're generally, and this is the rental side, is generally going to be good. For the flipping, I'm sure it's a little bit different. If you get caught in the downturn in the middle of a flip, you may have an issue. But
an important lesson there is to stay middle of the road. So where you saw your uptick in rentals in 2008, and you'll see it again if something happens in this market, is in your middle income. So your lower income, if there's a crash, your lower income is going to struggle to pay, right? Your middle income will need to go rent if they have to get out of their houses or can't afford a houses. Like, right? I mean, the bubble, I don't want to say the word bubble because I feel like we're all just guessing, but it feels a little bit inflated out here. I'll say that from a personal standpoint. When people are paying $50,000, $100,000 over appraisal, I'm calling that a little bit inflated, just a little bit, but I don't want to like scare anybody or pretend like I can guess the next crash. But where you're going to see your struggles is in high end rentals, because then those people can't afford the $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month. So that's why, yes, if you can stay middle of the road, I always like to preach that. And I just like, I'm a B class, C even, not even C minus. I just like low maintenance.
Exactly.
And I will lose some cash flow for that.
It's exactly what we do. We invest in, we like to say C to B minus areas, and we'd like to invest in some more maybe B plus areas if we feel like there's a big appreciation play there. But I totally couldn't agree more that middle of the road is kind of like where you'll always have the rental market. So love it. I think we want to dive into Rise.
Yep, I have one more.
Go ahead.
So we went through like the step-by-step on the private money lending. I really appreciate the insight, especially because you are one, but how does someone make themselves marketable to a private money lender, right? Like, do you put a pitch deck together, or is there some sort of packet that you personally may like to see, or that you used for someone else to say, hey, here are the deals that I've done and you can trust me with your money?
Yeah. So, I mean, we cheated a little bit on our end. I mean, we got through our first 100 deals with a very wealthy private money lender. So, I mean, he still funds, I'm trying to butt him out a little bit, but he still funds about 70 to 80% of our deals, give or take. My wife and I are the next largest investors in the company. But when you get to 100 houses and, you've paid your investor back every single time, it's a little bit of an easier pitch. But with that being said, sometimes I don't get to just use that pitch or come out that way. So what I do is be omnipresent. So be all over the internet. That helps me. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram. I do a little bit of TikTok. I should do more. But I do these podcasts. So like I rarely say no to a podcast. Just getting out there. And out of the podcasts I've done, I've probably raised, $1 million through just the podcast appearances, because they hear what I do. I seem personable, and I like to think that I am personable, and I'm upfront. I say that we have not won on every single deal, but the investors have never seen that. They have never seen the loss on their side. And that's like, whoa, you mean that it's almost all but guaranteed? Can't use that word, disclaimer there, that I get my money back, take my money. And then that's what will happen. So you need to, I tell people, when you're pitching or when you're asking for money, do not fake it. Don't lie, but maybe fake your confidence. Maybe fake your confidence right now, unless you know you're lack of better terms, POS, and you're not going to pay someone back their money. Just get out the game. All right. You're going to ruin it for everybody else. It makes no sense to me. But that's that's a temporary shortcut at best, at very best, because nobody's going to ever lend money to you again. All we have to do is not pay back one investor on one deal, and our reputation could be shattered. So it's never worth the risk to us. If we have to come out of pocket $30,000 to make you, if y'all were investors, to make you guys whole, it hurts, it sucks, but it's totally worth the invest. It's an investment at that point for us, because then you guys never really know any better. And even if you do, you didn't care because it didn't affect you.
Yep.
So be confident, have your numbers straight on the very first pitch. So like if you send out that email, if you send out that pitch deck, whatever you want to do, you can't go back and edit it. You can't go, whoops, never mind, that number it'll happen. Okay. It's going to happen to everybody, but try your very best. Double, triple, and quadruple check those numbers before you send them, because the last thing the investor wants to see is you messing up on the numbers. Okay. And then some good pictures, some quality of flips you've done before, or rentals you've done. And then if you have no experience, who are you? I want to know then, who am I lending to? Are you an honorable person? Do you have integrity? And how can you show that to me? Right? How can you prove that to me? You can go as far as your criminal record. You can show me your credit score. These are things that I would ask for, but maybe these things would help. A reference that's not your mom. Things like that. So it is harder. I'm not going to lie to anybody. And I think I don't want to sit up here and say, it's easy. When you have no deals in your pocket and no experience, it's going to be harder to raise money. And that's when I say, tell everybody, go to family then. Go to people who know you and know you're a person of your word. Start there.
Awesome. That's really, really good advice. I think the next thing we want to get into is kind of your real estate strategy, your real estate investment strategy, maybe talk a little bit about your portfolio. But before we get into all that, I want to talk about your why behind getting started in real estate. I know that it sparked something in terms of like, oh, I have to keep doing this, but what is your why behind why you get up and you do this every day? Because it's not easy.
I don't know. I'm weird. I tell people, entrepreneurs at the very core have to be weird in some sense. Like my wife, they thinks I'm weird, and she's entrepreneurial in a little bit, but some of that's admittedly because I push her because she'd be great at it. But she's also fine with being a W-2 employee, and she's great at that. And it's just like she doesn't have to go 100 miles an hour all the time. I do. I can't sit still. The most depressed I've ever been in my life, told this story 100 times. I was sitting in Maui and Oceanfront. And it's because I had sold my company. My phone wasn't ringing anymore. Nobody needed me for anything. And I couldn't handle it. It didn't matter how much money I had in the bank. My wife was making good money. I was sitting in one of the most beautiful oceanfront places in the entire world. And I was sad. And I was like, oh, there's something to having purpose. There's something to needing to want to do something. And I was like, and I even made a YouTube video about this, super controversial, especially amongst people and they're out there that could sit and play video games all day and don't get it. And good for them. I tell people all the time, I'm jealous. I wish I had an off switch. I wish I did. So my why I do this is because I have to. And then the second one is why real estate. Man, it was simple research for me. And almost I was like guided to it. So when I was younger, I flipped through the moving company. I flipped furniture. I flipped mattresses. Then I was flipping mattresses that I would like, that people like the kids would move out and want to throw away. I'd clean them up and sell them, and people were buying them $100. I get them for free. And then I was like, you know what? And I opened up an entire warehouse where I was ordering truckloads, tractor trailer loads full of mattresses and putting those little signs in the ground you might see around your city. Queen size mattress, $99. Well, that's just to get you in the door. And then I'd sell you the upgraded one. I did that for probably 5 or 6 months. Then I stepped up from that and started selling street bikes, flipping street bikes. I would buy them near military bases. I would bring them back to where they're not, clean them up, take good pictures, and pitch them at other military bases. And look, military kids, they're not educated on finances, but they get that big sign-on bonus. So they buy cars and motorcycles usually. Not all the time, not being stereotypical, but it's popular. Then what happens? They get deployed and they have nowhere to put this motorcycle. And they don't care. They just want out of it. So they'll take $3-4 grand and they pay less than they paid for it. They don't know how to take good pictures of it or clean it up. I do. And it was a 2-3K pop for me every time. And I did that more than I was allowed to in my state, but we won't disclose.
That's really funny. So it's you bring up a really good point, John. And that being that I think a lot of people want to get into real estate investing because they want to sit on a beach and retire. And I've learned this kind of the hard way as Ryan and I go through our portfolio and we start to build this and we start to see some real passive income come in. And I think to myself, I don't really have an off switch either. Like there's no shot that I have this ticker going on in my head and I'm going to continue to build and build and build. And then I'm just going to be able to shut it off. I think the purpose behind all this for us, at least for the two of us and probably the three of us, is that we just want to do something every day that lights us up. And if we can do that on our schedule, on our terms, it makes our lives so much better as opposed to answering to somebody else every single day when you wake up. So I just caution people that think that real estate investing is the avenue to doing nothing. If you build a portfolio, you're probably not going to do nothing because of the amount of work that we're realizing that it takes to do that. But you will have the passive income to allow you to do whatever that is that you do want to do at the pace that you choose to do it. So I think that was a really good point to bring up. Yeah.
Cautionary tale. There will always be another goal. There will always be another level. And whenever you tell yourself like the worst words, and I catch myself, all we need is once we hit this, we'll stop. Or once we get to here, we'll be happy. Or no, it doesn't work that way. It gets better and it gets easier. The more money you have, the easier it is to make, $1. That's absolutely true. But for whatever reason, it doesn't stop. And it's like, it becomes not even the money secondary. It's just you and your drive and your determination. And it's like, You almost feel responsible, like you have to do more at this point because you have the ability to, even if that's teach others. Like I feel responsible to make a video at least a week helping others because I have this knowledge and I have this education to help them. And look, my wife and I have reached financial freedom years ago. We make well over six figures just on investing. Like we don't need to be out here on YouTube and doing all this stuff. And I don't say any of that to brag. I'm just telling you guys as a tale that we thought that then we'd hang it up and we would just retire and go travel. And we do more of that. We have a lot more free time and a lot more security. But if anything, we've got more stuff going on now. If anything,
but I think it's the capability for you to say, if you got burnt out, John, and you said, I need a month to go do something, you have that capability. And that's the beauty of the entire thing is that who's taking a month off their W-2 job? What employer is saying, yeah, sure, go ahead. I mean, it's 2021. There's a lot of like ultimate PTO going on, but that's something that you don't have the money to go do it because you need to work every day for your W-2 job. So I love the notion, and I think it's important for people to realize.
It's having the option. So that's it. You just want options in life. And that's why, so it wasn't having the things that I thought I would want. And when I was younger, 20s, I thought I wanted the big house. I could have a big house. I live in, I don't know what our place is here, 1,800 square feet. We pay like 100, our mortgage is like $700 a month, right? So it's nothing because it's enough for us. It's perfect for us. The Ferrari, I always wanted the Ferrari, had the option to buy the Ferrari. And then when I was there, it was like, or I could take that $200,000 and put it in a house and make 30 grand, or I can buy this Ferrari for 200 and lose 30. And it was just like, but I have the option, and the options would make me happy. I think what I hated, when you ask me what my why is, this is one of them, was looking at the Ferrari and not being able to have it. I hated, and there's always going to be that, right? I can't buy Jeff Bezos's yacht. Okay. But I don't really want that, but I think that's what it is. It's not being able to have what you want. Right. Or being told no, or you can't, or not right now, or you can't take that vacation, or you can't travel there, or you can't fly first class. I don't want the no. And I don't necessarily need it. I just need to know that I can.
We got a guy sitting across. Well, I don't know how he's on the top of the screen. He was always preaching about a Lamborghini. And it's really funny because I've been reading just a lot about the financial independence community and real estate investors in general. And I read a quote the other day that says, by the time you can afford the car, it doesn't even matter. You don't even want it. Right. And it's like, not that I want to buy a really nice car, but I want to buy it in cash because I want that freedom from payments. Right. And I will do that. But I feel like I'd be happy with a $50,000 really nice car. I don't need, the Porsche 911 or whatever it is. So like you said, there's levels to it, and having the ability and the option to do these things is probably the most important thing. So.
I probably felt that more than anything we've ever had on the show so far. Is like I know it's so simple, but just being able to have it and not. I hate when someone tells me no. I just hate it, and like just kind of constricting in your time and your life, and like. The Lamborghini, that was always my dream car. And now that we're going through these investment properties, I'm like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to I'll have it. And then I'll be like, I'll just go buy 2 properties instead. And it'll pump me more cash and I'll be able to chill out. And Corey talks about his Tesla. And I'm like, dude, I just have this funny feeling. As soon as you can pay for it in cash, you're going to be like, I'll just go buy another property instead, maybe kick it down the road, but he will have it if he wants it. But it's just having that optionality, I think is the real answer there, which is incredible. Now, I guess let's transition it back a little bit to your investment strategy. And we know that specifically, obviously you're a private money lender, but also you're a flipper, right? Is that your primary vehicle for investment, or what is, and why did you pick that, strategy?
So we got a few things going on. So the company that I run with my partners is pretty much strictly flipping. So A&M Investments, we flip houses. That's what we do. We use private money lenders. We buy the home, we flip the home, we pay back the private money lender and their interest, and the company keeps the difference. So then my partners and I split that after all of our employees and overhead. So that's kind of how A&M Investment works. Then we have another company, A&M Equities, where essentially it's a flip company too, but it's more of a wholesaling company where we find already kind of nice houses, don't do a lot of work to them and just put them already back up. Essentially what those are called is just wholetailing. So that's essentially what those are, a mix between a retail and a wholesale. And then finally, we do have some rentals by default by failed flips. So we have some of those. We're actually, full disclosure here, and I like to pick on my partners because I joined up with them about a little over 4.5 years ago, and they've been doing this for about 6-7 years now, give or take. And this property was bought before I came in. And so I'm always messing. I was like, man, I don't really have much to do that. Look, they're like family now. We've been together. I'm going to take my bruises with this one too, but we're probably going to lose about 30 grand on this over the 3 years. Okay. But the whole time we pay the investor. So they're happy, right? And they're going to get their money back. But this one's going to sting, to say the least. And we haven't even got through inspections yet. So it's just going to add on to the insult to injury there.
So is that a situation where you keep that as a rental? Is that what you're saying? That type of property where you're like, well, we can't offload it. Let's just make some rental income on it.
Yeah. We'll just make rental income on it and hold it semi-long-term with our largest investor, because as long as him and his wife are making above 8%, they're relatively happy. They like to make more. They like the quick flips. They'd rather do that. But if they can make over 8%, look, I mean, with all the money we have of theirs, I mean, millions, to them, it's probably, an afterthought. Okay. So that's everybody's on different levels around here. Right.
Absolutely.
And so we're fortunate to have that, but we thought the market was hot right now. So we listed it, and we're going to probably get more for it right now than ever. Right. So might as well, if we ever want to pull the Band-Aid, pull it now. So anyway, we do that. And then, my wife and I own some rentals. We have about 5 of them. 4 of them is a fourplex that we bought. And we bought that for cash, and that does pretty well for us. It makes us almost $30,000 a year. It does great. We need to refinance and get the money back out, but I just don't have a purpose for the other money right now. So it's just going to cash flow inevitably until we have a determination for that other money. And then we have one other house that we were going to fix up and rent, but I sold it in one day on rent to own. And so I bought it for $7,000. They put $4,000 down and have been paying between $700 and $800 a month until they reach 20 grand. So, and keep in mind, rent to own, I don't touch it. I haven't seen that house again since I've turned the keys over, and they paid every month. So we'll turn 7 grand into 20 grand in about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And with no work, like I'll never see it again. I won't do anything. I don't pay utilities, nothing. Unless they leave, in which I'll just sell it. I'll just do it again. So we have that. And then we do a lot of private lending outside. This has grown a lot for us this year. We've done a lot of private lending outside of the company through other flips and other investors through groups I'm part of. And then just straight up, just cash lending. We just did one the other day. It was a great deal for us. Incredible deal for us. And I guess it worked out for them. But we loaned $80,000 cash for a guy to buy his lumber for his new build. It was a personal home. But if he didn't buy it right then, they were going to adjust his price to the new lumber prices. So his lumber cost was locked in at around 81. But if he did not pay for it right then, or within a couple of days, it was going to go to 93. So he paid me 86 for 1 month. He paid me 6,000 interest for 1 month on 80, and it still saved him 6 grand. So that's a win-win all day long. So I'll do deals like that, especially if you have collateral to put up.
We just had a funny lumber experience with a roof where we thought we were just gonna have to replace the shingles, and it turns out we had to replace all the plywood. And then instead of the plywood being $800, it was $2,400, and we had to front it. And it's just based on what's happening in the market right now.
Yeah,
it's a little bit smaller of a scale, but it's. I figured I'd bring it up. I think we want to talk about, like, what regional market do you invest in, and like, why did you choose that market? What about it did you feel like was a good place for you to be?
So, with anything, I think a lot of people discount this entirely. And then some people accredit it too much, but luck. Okay. Luck happens to all of us. The U2 meeting, some luck there, right? And then both of you wanting to start a podcast, and there's some luck in that, right? Not discounting your hard work, not discounting how many episodes you've made and the arguments you've probably been through as partners, as I know we have been. Like that stuff's going to happen, right? But you got to battle through that, but there's some luck in it. And it just happened to land here and find my 2 partners, and they were already invested in this market. And this market is strange. I mean, we can buy houses for $5,000. So that's unheard of.
We gotta get out of the Northeast, right? I don't know what's going on up here, but every time we talk to somebody who's in like the South or like the Midwest, they're buying houses for 10 grand. I'm like, I can't even buy a car for 10 grand up here.
Well, what you have, it's give and take. So we don't have a lot of competition. right? We're probably the biggest flippers in the state. We don't know how to prove that, but we don't know anybody else doing the amount of volume that we're doing at around 30 to 40 houses a year. So we probably are, but I don't know how to prove that. We have very little competition, but you want our downsides? Well, of course we have them. We can't find good laborers. We don't have a lot to pick from. So even if you hate them, you most likely got to use them again on the next house. You're not going to see any appreciation here. None. 1% on a good year. Okay. So if you would have bought in Houston, Texas, or Austin, Texas, or Nashville, or the Raleigh, North Carolina 5-6 years ago, you're probably rolling in it. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Well, we don't see that. The upside to that is we don't see a lot of depreciation. So if the market crashes here, our $100,000 house, if on a really bad crash, it's going to go to $95,000, right? And on a really good year, it's going to go to $101,000. Okay, that's kind of what we're looking at. But if you're in New York, if you're in Raleigh, if you're in if you're in San Francisco, your $1 million home just went to $700,000. You just lost $300,000, in 6 months, which could happen in a bad crash. But you can see a lot of appreciation, and you're going to see bigger margins in bigger cities. So we're doing much better now because we changed some things, but we're averaging, I'd say $25,000 to $45,000 a flip. That's what we do. Okay. And then in some markets, it would be an accident if they made under 100. Okay. And I do like that because you get a bigger payday for doing one house, but your risks are higher. And your competition's more stiff. So that's why this market and why I'm in it.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. I'm curious I know you've explained this a little bit, like what it is that makes a good deal, right? But maybe if you could dive a little bit deeper into like, if you're going to buy a property that's a flip, maybe you could explain a good deal for a flip and then also a good deal for a rental too. Now, it seems like the rentals that you buy are for security, right? If you buy a rental in cash, you're saying, let me have this thing bring $3,000 of a month in. And that's pretty secure if it's paid off. But I'm curious, like if you're teaching a young investor out there, maybe they're a flipper, but maybe they're a long-term buy and hold. And if you could explain the difference in like what you would look in for a good deal. I'm sure it's market dependent, but
yeah. So I think where people they pit these two against each other, flipping and holding, and that's the wrong way to go about it. There's so many things that determine that. What is your goals? Are you raising capital right now, or are you good on capital and maybe you have a job and you just kind of want to get out of that job, so you're building cash flow, right? So those are going to kind of determine if you're flipping or if you're renting. Then the location, right? Is this an area that rents better than it would flip? Like it might not even flip here, period. Like you might not be able to get it, but it's a great place to rent and I can buy it for cheap. Will I ever sell it? I don't know, but I don't care because I'm making $300 a month off of it, cash flow. And then, like I said, and then your financing situation. If you can't find private money lenders, or if you don't have a lot of cash to put down, maybe one strategy just makes more sense to you than the other. So it's really going to just depend on you and your goals. And I like to implement both. Why not grab some rentals and also put a $30,000 check in your pocket every once in a while? Don't forget to wholesale. Don't forget to rent to own. Don't forget to partner on some deals. Don't forget to do some lease options. You should know all of these things. So what we do is when we look at one house, and a lot of new investors make this mistake, even a lot of seasoned investors, you should have about 5 exit strategies to determine whether you want to buy that house or not. If you're just like this and you're looking for rentals and flips, you might miss a wholesale opportunity. You might miss a great rental, right? So what we do is we run all the numbers and we go, okay, we're always looking for flips main, right? That's why we go look at a second look. We call it, all right, it doesn't flip. Okay, well, maybe they'll want to partner on us. If they partner on us and we can make it flip, they hold the house in place. And now we don't have to bring the investor in. So we save some money there. And now it makes sense. The numbers make sense. Or okay, will it be a rental? Do we know somebody else in the area that might want to buy this and just give us $5,000 to $10,000 for finding it? If all those are no, we walk away. And if not, when we find out a solution. So it's going to be, like you said, market dependent, strategy dependent, goal dependent, and finances dependent. It's all of those things.
I love this because it shows that you're a true real estate investor and you know how to do all different types of things, where a lot of people teach the tunnel vision because they say you want to get really, really good at one thing. But I love the optionality that you have within each of your investments to say, well, no, I'm a real estate investor. I know how to do all these things. And if it makes sense for this to be a flip, then it'll be a flip. And if it makes sense to hold on to it, then it's whatever the deal tells you to do, not what your emotions tell you to do. So I think that's a really good point.
The numbers determine everything in this business.
Absolutely. So maybe let's walk through a specific flip. That seems to be your forte here in terms of what you're best at and what your niche is and what you're doing really well right now. Can you just share the numbers on maybe just pick one of your favorite flips and talk about how that deal ended up working out for you?
Yeah. I'm kind of hesitant to talk about it because it closes.
Oh, well, pick another one.
Yeah. Well, we got a bunch. Just one was coming to my mind because it's going to be a good one. We just got 10,000 over asking.
Do you think you're going to jinx it? I don't want to.
I don't think I'm going to jinx it, but it's like when the podcast comes out and then so when I do my YouTube videos, I don't talk about numbers until the house is closed because I don't want the buyer. You know how people are. The buyer finds out how much you're making on it, and it should not matter to them. But now they want, oh no, you're not going to make this much money off of me. And I can't risk that I'm the investor on this house, but I couldn't risk it for my partner. So you want just a pure flip.
Give us your most lucrative deal, the one that you hit the most, that you like the most excited about throughout flipping. Cause we have aspiring investors that could be like, whoa, that you can do something like that. That's crazy.
I'll talk about Glow Drive again because that one's a fun one. I've talked about this one before, but because it's hard to remember the numbers on all these houses, if you guys might imagine. But this one's pretty. I can't
even remember the addresses in all of our houses. So
this is a specific deal. So we bought this house. It was through a foreclosure, and we thought we recognized the address. Well, I'm sorry, my partners thought they recognized the address, and so we ride over there, and sure enough, it's a house that they flipped right before I met up with them, and it's going to foreclosure again. That's how they bought it the first time.
Wow.
And we were like, no way we're going to flip the same house twice. Because it happens, but rarely. I mean, especially within about 4 or 5 years of each other.
That's how you know you're in a small town.
Right. Or flip so many houses in that town, either one. But so we go in, and it's almost as if how they flipped it. It's how we flipped it. So I was like, right away, I'm the investor on this one because this deal is going to fly. So I want to be the investor on this. And the margins were huge. I think we made almost $85,000 on this deal. We went in, we painted the walls. We put the appliances in that they took. And there was one room downstairs, the dogs tore up. That was it.
How much money did that cost you total? I'm just curious.
I think we invested total with carrying cost. No, it got to about 12 or 13 because we had to replace the flooring downstairs too. Okay. And then garage doors and some other things that were minimal, but we're talking minimal. We were in it for under 15, and that's with electric, water, permits, all that stuff. Sold it within 2 days on market. And I think it grossed about $85,000, give or take. So my wife and I put a quick 20 some in our pocket, off the deal. And I mean, I think we were all in it for like 150. So we made 20 some on 150. And I think the whole deal took 90 days, but only because of the stupid rule of how long it takes from the time you buy it on an FHA loan, I believe it is. They make you wait a certain amount of days from the time you buy it. And that was the only reason. Otherwise, we would have been in and out. So that can happen. Look, I love that. That's called a wholesale pretty much. If you're a new investor, they're fewer and far between. But man, if you can keep your rehab low where most people mess up, that's where most people mess up. They don't know how to budget a rehab correctly. They don't know how to manage contractors correctly. If you can keep that number as low as possible, even if that lowers your margins a little bit on what you would consider a great flip, lower your margin of error and get in and out of your first couple like that just to build the momentum, and then do slightly bigger rehab and slightly bigger. Yes, you're going to get your best deal and your biggest margins on a completely burned down, ratted out house, right? But you need to know how to properly budget to bring that thing back to life. And if you don't know how to do that, chances are you're going to screw it up your first time.
Do you have any tips or tricks for people going into that space and maybe for budgeting there, right? And basically going under budget, right? And then also you said tactics for managing contractors. We're dealing with them right now too, but luckily there are mentors and referrals from us. It's luckily a good show rather than a shit show. And so maybe tips for people that we always hear people complain about contractors, and how to properly manage would be great if you had a couple tips.
Look, contractors get a bad rap, and It is their fault and it's not. Let me elaborate. Contractors are forced to be entrepreneurs, whether they are or are not. Okay. And here's your problem. These guys have to now not only know how to be a skilled laborer, which they're often good at. They're often relatively good at what they do. Not all the time, but most of the time they're good at roofing. They're good at drywall. They're good at painting. But now they have to be bookkeepers, and they have to be bosses, and they have to be schedulers, and they have to know how to handle invoices, and they have to know how to market. They're not good at all this stuff. Hardly any of us are. And they're forced to do this because contractors are 1099s most of the time. So they have to go out and find their own work, manage their own employees, manage their schedule. So they become yes men. And what yes men are, people who say yes to every job, whether they can handle it or not, because they're scared about where their next paycheck's going to come from. So if they just say yes enough times, they always have work lined up. Well, that could push you back 2, 3, 4 weeks. Then their employees quit, and it unravels very quickly. So a tip for finding a good contractor is get 3 quotes. And usually the rule is to go with the middle one, but I almost judge it differently. I will sometimes go with the most expensive one, or we will. It really depends on who shows up on time and communicates better. That almost ranks above the price, unless the price is out of the world. If it's even 20% more, depending on the labor we're asking for, but they communicated well, answered emails well, and showed up time to the estimate, got us the estimate in a timely manner, man, that ranks so high. That ranks so high for us over a cheap contractor that would, of course, save us money on the budget, but they were 3 days late and had to keep rescheduling the estimate and hand their invoice in on a napkin, or their pitch or proposal. Man, it's tough. It's hard for me to give direct advice on this. I really need to do a whole video on it and how we manage it, but it's like, you need referrals. You need a lot of referrals. And then I like the 3 contractor strategy where you get quote from 3. And then once you find a good person or people, don't be afraid to pay them. Don't be afraid to pay them. That'd be the other one.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. And you're so right about contractors being thrown into the entrepreneurial world. And what ends up happening is they don't know how to really run a business. They just know how to do their trade. And by doing that, they then are robbing Peter to pay Paul and moving money from one job to another. And they probably end up spending way more time doing stuff they don't even want, which makes them lackadaisical on the job, like having to juggle all these balls. So I think that's very important. And we have great contractors, and we're going to, really take care of them. I think that's the best advice that I've heard, is just like you said, take care of them. Don't be afraid to pay them, that type of thing. So
absolutely. Never be afraid to say thank you. If you do extremely well on a flip or your burr strategy, throw those guys an extra $200-$300 and say thank you. I hope to have you on the next job. Maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. Look, at the end of the day, it makes you feel good. You gave some, right? And you did the right thing. That never guarantees anything, but it never hurts, right? Especially you. It doesn't hurt you. So if they don't show up again after that or do a shoddy job on the next one, it's not your fault, right? Doing the right thing is never the wrong thing, right? So that's what I always preach. So do that stuff and take care of your guys. And then one more tip you could try with contractors. This is hard to find, but if they can take pay every 2 weeks, that lets you know they have some float money and probably know how to manage money a little bit. Okay. It's hard to find. It's really hard to find, but if they need paid daily, run. Okay. Run as far as you can. If they need paid daily, they should be able to carry themselves and their employees and their crew and their operation at least 7 days, preferably 2 weeks. Because keep in mind, the commercial guys are so expensive, because commercial guys have to be really good at knowing how they're doing what they're doing, because they have to carry their crews months. If you do a rehab for Pier 1 imports, you could wait 3 to 6 months on your paycheck.
Yep. Like net 60. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. 100%. That's really good advice, Sean. I think as we wind down the show, I kind of want to dive into marketing quickly about, how are you marketing and how are you finding these deals? Is this a mailer situation? Are you doing cold calling? Because your business is only as good as the leads coming in, correct?
Yeah. So, we started heavy. We were doing the bandit signs, putting the signs in the yards or on the road, and we were door knocking and hanging flyers. What we would do is we would kill 2 birds with one stone. This is a great idea for people. Get door hangers saying you buy houses, and while you're out driving for dollars, use those door hangers. If you're going to go look at a house in a neighborhood, just that's a lead came in, hang door hangers on the neighborhood doors on houses you think that could be flipped. That's a great strategy because oftentimes if they're sitting there dilapidated, the lawn guy might see it and give it to the owner, whoever's mowing the yard. They might give it to the bank if the bank's holding it. You never know who that might go to. And you could probably grab 300 door hangers off of one of those websites. What's one of them?
Etsy,
yeah, any of those probably for like 100, 150 bucks. And then always have business cards on you. Mailers are great. We have, but what we do now, and you can't do what we do if you're starting out. All right. We're into this for a little while, but we have a humongous Facebook page and a huge following now. Right. So we have 12,000 local followers on our Facebook page. So when we post a house, 9 times out of 10 in this market, we're selling houses before we list them. The people are following our page. When's your next house? When's your next house? Then you got me out here. I'm all over Instagram and doing my stories and doing it that way. So I would say, this might make some people angry, but again, we're in this market that we can do this. I can't say that we've probably spent more than $100 a house on marketing. And now it's just if we need to run a Facebook ad on it when it's complete.
But that's because you created a platform and you've built a brand for
years.
Yeah.
We spent thousands and thousands a month to now be able to do what we do.
Yeah. You're an overnight success in 10 years. That's like,
right. That's always right.
Yeah. So I think that's really good advice. And that's kind of what we have tried to do on our side is create this brand, an awareness of what we're doing so that now it hasn't brought us a deal yet or anything like that, but we're not doing it for that purpose. We're doing it to provide value to other people, to show people the type of people that we are. And then, kind of this karma situation that comes around, what comes around goes around. So, I really like that. Rye, did you have something there? Or
yeah, I was just saying it will pay off. Y'all just stick to what you're doing. Just keep your head down, even on the days where, I know that you guys probably do what I'm famous for, and that's calculating my time. And it sucks sometimes. You're like, man, what are we actually making off of this? What are we actually doing? And look, so I made YouTube videos for 2 years for no money. For 2 years. It took me about 2 years to become monetized. And even then I was making like $100 a month, $200 a month, and now but my wife and I, just through our YouTubes and our coaching platform, we make 6 figures through that. So it took a long time. And I'd like to tell her, I was like, okay, great. Now we just have to maintain this amount of income for 8 years to make up for all of the time we spent. But you can't look at it that way. And we do enjoy it, but you're lying or other people are lying. I'll say I would be lying if I said I did not get frustrated. How many times did I want to quit YouTube? This many times. Okay. That's how many times I wanted to quit YouTube. And my wife's over here laughing right now because she knows it's the fact. It was a struggle, right? It was like, man, my time could be better spent doing this or that. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I enjoy teaching. And you know what really helps me? I'm sure it does for you guys too. When you get that random message of, oh my God, this really helped me, or this inspired me, or I flipped my first house because of you. It's like, man, that's better than a paycheck. Let me go. I'm going to go make a video right now. I don't care what Google put in my account this month. That didn't inspire me. Your message saying that I helped you flip your first home or get out of debt or whatever it is, that just motivated me more than anything.
I think it's a great point because we haven't looked at this as like a big monetization play so far. We just wanted to put out really good content. And now we're starting to get to the point on our podcast, and we're going to start to roll out some courses and coaching where you can really start to monetize, but it's only because we're giving away advice from people like you who have done this before. And so I appreciate that because I think that there are days where we're like, we have 9 to 5 jobs. So we're working this on the side of whatever else we're doing. And we have 9 to 5 jobs that are demanding too. So very, very cool. Rye, did you have something before I go into the next segment here?
No.
Awesome. Cool. So we want to talk about, you mentioned coaching and you mentioned like your company that and your courses and coaching that you have with your wife. I believe it's called More Than Money. Can you explain what More Than Money is and how that works and the services that you provide?
Yeah. So this is ever evolving. So my wife and I always did consulting, one-on-one calls and all that. And I still do that. I still do that for people who are serious and we'll pay the money to do it. I did it for free. Look, I did my civil service and I did probably 50, maybe more of them for free because I just wanted to teach. But then a lot of like no shows and a lot of people who didn't show up to the calls. And look, I just was like, or people that just would not like do the complete opposite of what we had a call about. And I know that's not what it should be about, but it's like, man, I didn't get any value out of this and you took a ton. Okay. And I don't mind giving, but if you're going to not only take, but not listen, that's frustrating to me on a small level. Right. And so I was telling her, I was like, look, we don't have the time. And a lot of people don't understand that it's really hard to scale a consulting call business or a coaching business. I used to do personal training too. It's really hard to scale that because how many clients can you fit in a day? Even if these clients are paying you $100 an hour, you can maybe get 8 clients in a day. That's great money. But it can only be scaled so high. You
can't duplicate yourself.
Yeah, you're never going to coach 50 people in a day for 1 hour. There's not enough time in the day, right? So I didn't realize that when I was younger, and I kept running into that wall. But now I said, you know what? My wife's almost at 40,000 subscribers. Shout out Rihanna Ferriero on YouTube. She's almost at 40,000 subscribers through her nursing thing. Who also are always interested in what I do from a money standpoint, because these are high income earners. And she also has a lot of CRNAs who are really good income earners, right? And then I had a platform and people were always asking, I said, babe, we want to work together. Let's do this. So we started this More Than Money platform through Discord. And basically what it is, people sign up, they pay a monthly fee to be a part of it. And every week, once a week at least, we go live on a different subject: credit cards, private money lending, Roth IRAs, stock market versus real estate. We pick a topic that people are interested in, and we sit on there for about an hour. We're going to do it tomorrow night. And we sit on there for about an hour and talk about with people. Last week, we did health and life insurance. And we get anywhere from 5 to 15 people in there with us. And then other people watch it when they have time. I think we're right around 200 members now. And it's great. We can spend less time teaching more people. And that's what it's all about. And we would really like to grow that. This thing's ever evolving for us. And we don't know what direction to go into it. We haven't thrown $1 at it marketing wise. And we don't know where to go with it, but we do love it. And we hope that becomes a bigger part of what we do.
Well, I know it's not all about the money, but if you talk about 200 subscribers at $25 a month, I mean, that's great income coming in for, I'm sure, the time you spent on it and the investment that you've made on it. What you just said was not that much. So that's really, really cool. And just ideas for other people with platforms that can help monetize too. So, well,
people see that and they think that, well, we didn't just start that group, overnight. Yeah. 200 members joined because we ran YouTubes for 3 years, right? And constantly gave away free material and built trust that we're actually doing what we're talking about and actually knowledgeable and actually have, the money that we say we do and the experience we say we do.
There's no way around it. That's what I'm gathering here. It's like, it's funny. We're on 1.5 years and we're kind of building this thing up and like, you can get into so many different streams, right? You could go the YouTube route, you go the Facebook route, you go the TikTok route, you could go the Instagram route. Like, it just ever evolving. Then now we're here in Discord, right? And then there's courses, then there's one-on-one coaching, and there's so many ways to make money on the internet, but it's kind of building that system out. Right. And like, even you seem to have systems down and you've been able to flip things since you were mid-20s, and like it's very hard to do it by yourself, but then also like kind of sit down and build out the systems when you have so many other things going on. So I don't know if you have any advice for guys that may be a couple of chapters before you, but we have a lot of people that are young, aspiring entrepreneurs, and they're interested in real estate, but then also they're intrigued in building an online business. Like, even your YouTube, like what did you and your wife do, I guess, to get each other through the dark days, the hard days, and how did you build out your systems? I don't know if it's going to be a super long conversation, but maybe a short summary so we don't take too much of your time up.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're kind of referencing to couples there a little bit, and look, I'm not a relationship therapist, but if you're not on the same page, good luck. I couldn't imagine that struggle. I wouldn't want to be a part of that struggle. I love my wife to death. So if she changed her mind today, I'm going to stick it out because, we're 13 years into this now, right? Like, unless you went way off the deep end, it was like, I'm spending all of our money and nothing matters anymore. I'm like, wait. Let's just meet somewhere. Okay. But the fact that we're both on the same page, the speed in which we can travel is like unmatched amongst people who can't get on that same page. And so, first of all, it's whether you have a couple or not, you need to be in line with yourself or them of where you're going, and be in agreement with that. And then your actions have to also match that. And that's the trick, right? People can always say, I'm going to save $100,000. Okay, that's great. But then you went to the store the next day and bought the new Jordans or the new TV or the new Xbox. It's like, I'm not saying you can't have those things. It's your prerogative. But you just told me you're going to save $100,000. So you're serious? You're not serious. Which one is it? Because it doesn't look like it, right? So it's a lot of it is self-control and self-discipline, right? And a lot of people don't like the coaching that we do, or this really happened to me or triggered something in me when I was coaching, when I was personal training. There's no magic behind what you're paying for, right? Sure, there's shortcuts. You're paying for my knowledge. You're paying how I lift weights or how I invest my money. But really what you're paying for is accountability. Really what you're paying for is someone make you go to the gym every day. Someone to make you do those push-ups, someone to make you do that one extra rep, someone to make sure your diet's on point, someone to make sure and that you have to answer to, because you can read all this stuff. You can get all the information I'm going to tell you on this podcast. You can Google it. You can spend all the time on books, and you might even be more knowledgeable than me in a year. Okay. But are you going to apply it? Right? That's what you're actually paying for coaching and mentorship. You're not, yes, the information is the shortcut and having that's great. But applying it and making sure they make you apply it is the most important part of all of this. And that's what you're actually paying for.
It's the number one reason why it's the number one reason why I think Rye and I have developed a partnership that works out so well, and why I'd rather take half the profits with somebody like him than try to do it on my own, because every single day I know I'm going to wake up and he's going to be pushing me to do the next thing. And it's like, how else would I do it? I mean, I do have internal motivation, but to have a partner that has that too, like you and your wife do, it
really helps. I mean, I think that's amazing advice. I might've talked over Corey on that one, but having that accountability buddy, I guess you want to call it, or accountability partner. Like seriously, you wake up, there's days you just don't, I mean, you keep going, right? So I might not be speaking for you, but like some days you wake up, you're like, nah, not today. And then, but I can't because I have Corey on the other line who's expecting me to help him in XYZ. Like we're partners, we're 50-50. So you each have your own roles and things that the other person needs you to do in order for you both to be successful. And it's kind of cool to have, I was always told, don't get a partner, do everything on your own. But there's so many benefits of having a partner, and I could rattle off 1,000 of them. But the most important thing probably is that accountability and going through the journey together. Like you go faster, but B, like the success you see, to not be able to share that with someone would suck. Like, it's so cool to be able to watch, even if you're not super excited about something, they get jacked up on this little thing. And it's like, wow, you just made their day. And there's so many different positive things you could talk about with having a partner, but to say the least, it helps you, it helps through motivation. And like you said, you go light speed as opposed to, it could have taken you 5 years to do something by yourself, where it takes you 1.5 years with a partner.
Totally.
100%.
Cool. The second to last segment of our show is called the Core Four. So this is where we get to know you a little bit more personally as the show winds down, kind of learn what makes you tick and just get inside your head a little bit. So the first question is, what is your favorite investing or business book?
I hate giving the same answer every time, but I mean, it probably is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I hate that it's such a generic answer, but man, he knocked it out of the park with that book. It just
now he's off the deep end, but he did knock it out of the park back then. So
stick with the book, stick with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You can't go wrong with it. I mean, even like Grant Cardone, I even unfollowed him, and that's going to be teach their own. I'm somebody who likes to give back, and I'm not saying he doesn't. I'll get off that topic.
No, dude.
It gets too flashy. It gets too flashy. For
I
me,
agree.
Okay, it almost loses. Excuse me. It almost loses like the path or what you were teaching or trying to show us, like the $200,000 watches and the jets. I get it. I know that brings you more income, but what's that actually teaching somebody? I don't know what that's actually teaching. That's teach their own. But even his book, 10X, I believe it's called 10X. It was like, that pushed me. That did push me. That book did push me. But I would go probably Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You go Richest Man in Babylon if you want to learn how to save and pay yourself first. Can't go wrong there. I'll give you 100 books here, but any of these books are great. Any of them, read them. Just don't forget to apply them.
Yep, absolutely.
That's probably the most important part is the action behind it, right? You can read 1 million books and everybody's writing down, probably listening in their car, writing down this book, but like, if you don't actually go read it or listen to it, I would say a cheat code is just download Audible. I mean, if you're driving, listen to a podcast, you can listen to this book in a couple hours. Say you have a long trip to go through. Like, I have family that lives 6 hours away. I bang out books like ASAP. But then it's like, it kind of hard sometimes because you want to like write down, almost do like a mini book report and like take down the important parts and like, how am I going to implement this in my life? And you get excited when you finally do that. But the Ramit Sethi, I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right, but like, I'll Teach You to Be Rich. That was one of my most recent reads. I'm like, dude, I got like seriously probably a year or two ahead of where I was by reading that book. And it took me a week to finish. So, important. Those are great books to bring up. Everyone does say not Rich Man Babylon, but Rich Dad Poor Dad. That seriously is like the core pinnacle of like the financial independence movement. Like, just read the damn book. If you're listening to the podcast and you haven't read it, just read it and it will motivate you, and just take the action after it. Long-winded there, but second question in the core four is, what's been your biggest mistake that you made along your investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
Waiting to invest. That was it. That's it. I mean, we're talking millions at this point. I mean, it's because of compounding, it would be millions. I had the money to invest. I started my business right around the end or a year or two after 2008, when the market was at all-time lows. Real estate was at all-time lows, and I was working. I was making good money, but I was saving. I mean, I saved hundreds of thousands of dollars and did nothing with it. I did nothing with it but sit on it. And it was actually losing money. And it's because I didn't educate myself. I was busy then. I can't hate on myself too much. Like, I was young 20s. I was doing better than most. I was being an entrepreneur and I was saving. So that was great. But do I wish that I started investing in my Roth IRA, into index funds, into the real estate market, especially where I'm from, Charlottesville, Virginia. If I bought a place then for $500,000, it's worth $1 million now, right? So I just wish I would have got started investing sooner. And people who think that like, oh, well, I only have like $500 to invest. Just invest it then. Invest it, because people don't understand the power of like getting started or getting rolling. It's like, okay, you only have $500 right now, but you invest that. And once you open up the Roth IRA and invest in the Roth IRA, now it's easier. Starting the account and getting rid of that first $500 or $50 or $2,000, that's the hard part. But now you've done it. So now all it is a few clicks of a button the next time. There's not so many barriers between you and investing. So just get it started as soon as you can. You know, even if it's $1, I don't care what it is, open up the lane for you to do it easier. So you're removing the barriers from you saying, well, man, the market's down today and I'd invest, but I haven't even opened my Roth yet. Well, you get rid of that. If you open it up tomorrow, you have the lane open.
That's very important to bring up. It's the exact definition of the snowball effect, right? Like, you just like, once you start, it just keeps rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger. Then you got a nice snowman, hopefully, at the end of the day. But I really like breaking down the barriers, and just like, it seems so daunting, right? Like opening their first IRA or the 401k, or just like even a savings account for some people, right? It's crazy to say, but once you do that and you have it, you're like more intrigued to learn more. And it's like, oh, okay, I did that. It wasn't that bad. And then you start pumping money into it, and you see your life change before your eyes. And it's the same with real estate investing, which we talk a lot about. It's like, I'm telling you, once you get your first deal, you're in the game. Like, you're in the game. It might not be a home run. It's just get a single, just hit a little dinger, and it'll change your life. So
lose a few grand. It's your education. People pay $100,000 for a college education and then don't even use the degree, but are scared to lose $5 or $10,000 on a deal that will teach them endlessly how to make money.
Yep. That's so true. I need to stop worrying about losing, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there based on something we did in a rehab. And it's just like, it all comes out in the wash once you learn as long as you learn from your mistakes. So.
Especially if you're holding the property.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we do, is we buy and hold. So awesome. The third question is, who is your who for this year? And by meeting this person, you believe your business or life will be propelled to the next level. And if you don't have somebody in mind that you are looking to meet, maybe who's somebody that you have met over the past, 4 or 5 years that has helped drive you or your business forward.
I'd probably say on the business side of things, Daniel Clayman, with the owner of Rehab Valuator. That guy, I don't even really like, his goals are probably beyond what mine are. I'm 34 now. I'll be 35 next year. And that's not old, but I'm starting to value time a lot more than money. And so how quickly he moves and the amount of deals he does and what he has in the pipeline, and he has no partners. All right. I value partners just like you guys do, but I do understand the value of not having them on the bottom line. Right. So if you can get away without it and you don't have to deal with any of the headaches, some of the headaches that partners bring, they bring a ton of benefits, but my partners and I, we fight, we're like brothers. Right. And sometimes we don't always agree. We have separate companies. We do things outside of each other because we don't agree with how that would be run. He has none of that. And to think about that and have, he's probably going to have at the end of this year, I think he'll have like 500 or 600 doors. To think about that, it's just like, and there's always another level, right? There's someone who has 10,000 doors, I'm sure, but it's like, man, that's a lot. And so meeting him, I guess it opened up my eyes to, so I've actually met someone doing that scale and that he's not really much different than us. Maybe he's had a few extra opportunities he's taken advantage of. Maybe he's a little smarter in some areas, but it's attainable. What he's doing is attainable. And I believe he's in his 40s. Do I want all that? I don't know. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good. I'm glad you brought that up because there's always another level. So it's like if you drive yourself, we talked about the go button and to keep pressing go and moving forward. But like at a certain point, you have to be maybe content's not the right word, but at least appreciate what you have done and the level that you have gotten, because you can look up forever and then you can look up until you hit the grave. And then what was it all for? Right. So like, I think that I really appreciate that because I look at people with 60. We have 7 units, right? So I look at people with 15 or 20 and I'm like, oh, they're doing so great. And it's like, well, if I don't want to get to that point and think I should have 100 or I'm not going to appreciate what I have built. So, but it's always good to learn from
you will.
I know.
It doesn't stop. But the other key too, my wife reminds me of this all the time. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You never do. Yep. So everything looks great on the surface. Social media especially shows that, right? That's why I like to show a lot of, I like to show, I don't like to flood the thing with it, but I like to show my losses. I talk about, I struggle with depression. When you said the other day, the other day, just recently you said, John, I don't know if you have an off switch or ever have days you don't feel like doing anything. I go through bouts of depression where I think I'm the worst human on earth and I'm doing nothing. Right. So I have to fight through that. And I talk about that openly because I think a lot of people are scared to talk about fighting mental things. It's like, I fought that my whole life. And that's a struggle for me. I have anxiety as well. So that's things that people may not see on the first, like, oh man, John and his wife, they're millionaires and they're financially free and they travel all the time. That's true. And we do, and we enjoy that. We live a great life, but we have struggles. We have struggles just like anybody else. And sometimes people, so I like to talk about that stuff to be more personal, first of all, but also to relieve pressure on people who might only have 1 rental or 2 rentals or 7 and haven't flipped 170 houses. They're like, it's okay. Right? Everybody who seems to have everything is not always the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually it's not.
And that's the level that you want to get to just that ultimate happiness and find out how much money do you need to be happy, and everything on top of that is icing on the cake. And that's great. But I did listen to your YouTube, I know it was on Instagram when you were drinking the chai tea latte from Starbucks. And I was laughing because you were talking about, you're just being open and transparent about how you should have done, I guess you should have had an equity play versus an investment play on a deal.
I think I lost 12 grand by saying the words, I'll take interest on this one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, you can't lose sleep over that type of thing now. Just the decisions that you made in the past, they'll shape you. So really, really cool advice. Rye, you want to hit the 4th question here?
Yep. Last question. And you talked about it briefly earlier in the show, more so on, I guess, probably on the business side. You talked about your why, but we want to know what you want your legacy to be. Like, why, aside from, making money, but like, why do you do what you do every single day? What gets you out of bed every morning? Kind of what you explained earlier, but maybe a little bit more deep.
So I'm going to be a little bit weird on this one. And this is a teach their own type of thing. So I actually don't care too much about legacy. I don't care if I'm remembered after I die or what. I do hope I want my family to be taken care of, obviously, right? If something were to happen to me, I want my wife and daughter to be fine, and not have to worry about money or things like that. But am I a statue? Do I have 10,000 units? And people talked about me as one of the greatest investors. I don't really shoot for that stuff because I'm going to be dead, right? I think it's almost kind of weird. It's like, unless you believe in like the afterlife, or you can maybe if you believe you can look down and see, and I guess that'd be kind of cool if people are still talking about you. But Otherwise, if you're dead and can't see anything, why would it really matter to me? Why would the statue or whatever the case may be written about in the history books? I do hope I leave a positive impact on the world. Now, if that's something different, I don't believe owning 10,000 units would so much do that. But if I implemented some type of policy or some type of like educational, a great one would be like, hey, Jon Schoeller is responsible for why at 5th grade on you start learning about financial education in the public school system. Yep. That would be cool. Yep. That's something that would be awesome to me. But my why is my family right now. I mean, that's pretty much it. And having more time with them and allowing us to like just travel. Like we're huge travelers. Like that's where we spend our money. A huge goal for us is having our baby girl. She's 2 years old. We want her to see 50 countries before she's 18. So that's like a huge why and a goal for us. We've seen probably, I think 17 or 18 ourselves now, plus a ton of islands. So that would put us in the 70-some mark, and that would be cool, right? So that's probably what we would like to do, or that's probably my why and what feeds my motivation outside of this thing saying, get up and go, or else I'm going to be mean to you. It's basically what my brain does.
That's cool. I really respect that. And it's a different take on it too, which is, a lot of people say the same thing. So I really like that. Real quick, personal question for me. I love traveling too. What's the favorite place that you and your wife have ever been to? It's probably hard to narrow down one, maybe pick.
Well, we got married in the Maldives, so that's going to probably do it there. And then Iceland would be high up, Greece, and then the Dolomites in northern Italy. Those are going to be probably that around off a top 4 or 5. Wow, that'd be it real quick.
So I've seen the Maldives. I've seen the I guess it's like the drone picture of like it almost looks like a set of leaves that are out on the water, and then you got the little huts on top. I'm going there. That's on my list. It's incredible. I've been to Iceland. That's my number one place because I went with the guys. It was like we just traveled together. I guess it depends on who you go with too, right? Had an amazing time, and then also Greece. I got engaged in Greece, so awesome. It was absolutely incredible. I would highly recommend both those places as my top 2 for people. And then if the Maldives is it's pricey. So I'll wait till I get to my 135 flips, but I'll get there.
Yeah. Very cool, John. We have no doubt that you'll have your daughter get to 50 countries. So awesome. I guess we've made it to the last drop. So last segment of our show, kind of some parting advice. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self if you can go back in time, maybe to 18-year-old John?
This one's easy. It's get around the right people as fast as you can. This is hard for people to swallow, but sometimes the people you're currently around, I'm not saying you have to ditch them, but sometimes the people you're currently around are not going to help you get to the goals you ultimately want. So if you're 18 or 19 or 20 or 25 or 40, and you're saying, I want to be wealthy, or I want to get rich, or I want to do better, or whatever your goal, it could be anything, right? It doesn't have to even do with money. If the people around you are not doing that, the likelihood of you doing it it goes down, it lowers, right? So maybe just hang with other people as well, right? If you're at the bar every weekend, like I was, while saying, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to have Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Well, I was lying to myself. I wasn't putting in the work. I wasn't putting in the time and the effort. I was going out and drinking, and I was doing that every weekend over and over again and chasing girls. And most of us will do that. I'm not saying don't have that experience in your life, but what I'm saying is you're lying to yourself if you're drinking it Friday, Saturday night, on your time off, and then working some 9 to 5 during the week and doing nothing in the evenings and just waiting on Friday again. And that's the people you're hanging around. That's what you're going to do. So if you want to get into real estate, make friends with real estate investors, or get mentors that are real estate investors, work for them for free. People think that's mind blowing, but if I could go back and do it again, I would find someone like Daniel Clayman or myself or you guys. Like, I don't care how much skin you have in the game or where you started. If you're doing it, I want to be around you. I want to have lunch with you at least once a week. I'll pay for the lunch. do you need some marketing? Do you need me to hand out flyers? What do you need me to do so that I can just have a little bit of your knowledge and time, and maybe one day a connection and work together? Maybe, right? And speed this whole process up for me. Get around the right people as soon as possible.
That's excellent advice. I think, when I first started out, I'm a basketball coach, a high school basketball coach for a very high level program. And my first experience with it was say, can I be a volunteer? And that was the best decision I ever made, because the person that I'm connected with is one of my biggest mentors, and he's owned multi-million-dollar businesses and helped me in so many different ways. He just happens to also coach basketball, but offering up your services for free to try to get in the game is, go ahead. I see you're itching.
Because a lot of people don't know this about the story. I've mentioned on a few podcasts, but Steve and Andrew, the company could not afford me the first year. They could not, it would not have worked. I worked the entire first year. I never missed one day, by the way. I worked the entire first, and I was probably, arguably, I think they would admit to this. I don't think it's a big deal. I was more financially well off than them. So I didn't have to do this, but I wanted to be a part of real estate so bad. And they had all this going on already that I worked the entire first year and proved who I was without getting paid that for it. Now I got paid, but the next year for the previous year.
Sure.
But I had to go the whole first year and say, like, look, y'all don't have to pay me this first year. Pay me next year when I help make our budgets go up and I can afford it, and we can afford me. I did that for a whole year, and I worked every single day, Monday through Friday. I got the weekends off for that year and some holidays, but I never missed another day. And I proved to them that, hey, you want me to be your partner. I do what I say I'm going to do, and I can do what I say I'll do. And I will be a significant part of this and a benefit. And a lot of people would never, because it's also a gamble. It's also a gamble. Anything could happen to them, could happen to the company. And I just lost a whole year, but I bet on myself, and they let me take that gamble, and it worked out. But a lot of people don't know that whole story.
That's cool. I don't even think 1% of people do that, to be honest. I'm seriously, I think it might be like 0.5%. Like that's amazing. And hey, look where it got you. So it's just incredible. So with that, I'm sure there are a lot of people that enjoy the show as much as we did and will want to get to know you a little bit more, want to network. So how can people get in touch? Where can they find you on whether it be social or any kind of other platform?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at my name, Jon Schoeller, Jon, no H. I do real estate. I'm doing walkthroughs of like abandoned mansions and resorts now. Try to keep it entertaining, but it usually always has to do with money or real estate in some aspect. Then you can follow me on Instagram at The Frugal Investor. You never know what you're going to get on my stories. I was just talking about OnlyFans today because it's crazy that Bad Bunny girl, Catch Me Outside girl, made $1 million in 6 hours.
Yep, I saw that,
and I was just like, so I did a bunch of. I was just being fun on my stories, but it still has to do with finances. But I just talked about 6 stories. But usually I'm talking about real estate investing. I'm talking about finances, how to save your money. Of course, my wife and my daughter are on there a lot in my stories. But my feed is all motivational quotes, inspiring quotes, and videos about how to invest or real estate investing or saving for a Roth or Roth IRA versus standard index fund, whatever. It's all on there. And I talk about that. So if you just want education, you don't want all the behind the scenes stuff, it's on my feed on Instagram. And then of course you can join my wife and I's community through Patreon on More Than Money. If you just want to join us for weekly discussions on financial education.
Love it. Jon, it's been a pleasure. You have a wealth of knowledge. It's always good to talk to like-minded people. And when I'm up at 1 a.m. thinking about my next move, I know I can think about you probably being up too, thinking about your next move. So
it's probably right.
So it's just good to connect. So thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you both having me on this evening.
Thanks so much, Jon. It was a pleasure.